This is BBC Two. Being very irreverent for the next hour. The news as it was then in half an hour. First, another chance to be topical.
Good evening and welcome to the programme, attacked this week by one viewer who wrote to complain about the random way the points are allocated on the grounds that the level of money wagered on the outcome of this show increases week on week. So our apologies to Mr Joseph Wall of Newark and 1 point to Ian. In the news this week, at Manchester Comprehensive, sixth formers respond to the Education Minister's speech on school discipline. There's a warm welcome for Prince Philip on his goodwill trip to China. And in Moscow, Boris Yeltsin's son makes a guest appearance on the Russian version of Kilroy. On Ian Hislop's team is the BBC One chat show host who started his career on a minority channel, so welcome back, Clive Anderson. And with Paul Merton tonight is a performer who's constantly annoyed at being described as someone else's daughter, so please welcome Johnny Vaughan's co-presenter, Liza Tarbuck. So, welcome to round one, as indeed anyone is, Paul and Liza. This is the BBC.
In the news this week for, the royal pageant. They don't want to stage the Queen Mother's 100th birthday.
And she's not going to be fired out of a cannon. That's Robin Oakley at the end?
Oakley.
Oakley,
from Human League.
Is it? Yeah, that's him, the man from Human League.
Yeah. He's being replaced by Andrew Marr.
Don't you want me, baby? And they said, no, we don't.
The Queen Mother's thing's going on to ITV, isn't it?
So we believe, yes.
So I think they're dealing with their problems. They've been got at for getting rid of news at 10, so they're going to get her to present news at 100.
The reason she's incredibly popular is she hasn't said anything since 1930.
Yeah.
All she does is wave.
But what's the reason given by the BBC for not covering?
They say they're covering other bits. The actual birthday they're going to cover, so they'll
Yes.
actually have the sort of small party with her blowing out a candle with 100 cakes on it. No, a cake with 100 candles on it.
The cost, I think, was another slight
Yeah, but isn't the
worry to
cost
them.
being borne by all the sponsors? Gordon's and Beefeaters and...
Well, we don't know. A mystery benefactor offered £400,000.
Mr Ladbroke, was it?
Well, the identity of the mystery benefactor was hinted at in the papers quite recently.
I wish I'd stabbed her now. I could have pinned her to that notice board, basically. She'd have stopped waving after a while, I can tell you.
And did you chat with the Queen Mother?
We talked about you.
No, you didn't.
Yes, we did.
What did she say about
I've never heard such language in all my life.
So how else is her birthday being commemorated?
There's going to be a stamp brought out
There
with
is,
the Queen
yes.
Mother on it, and Prince Charles, and probably the Queen, and probably the Price.
But not Fergie.
No.
You don't want to lick the back of that one, do you?
Yes, this is the Queen Mother's 100th birthday pageant, and the news that the BBC are not going to be screening it. The Daily Mail were the loudest voice of condemnation, and a full-page attack. They listed the ways in which the BBC waste our money. Number one being Noel Edmonds paid £1.8 million for a year not to work. Sounds like a bargain. Ian and Clive.
That's Peter Mandelson. The well-known Europhile. I think we're allowed to say that.
This is all about the euro. There's Mandelson wants us in, Brown wants us out, and Tony Blair wants us to shake it all about.
Yeah, so what is the official government line on joining the euro?
Keep quiet about it.
Wait and see.
Prepare
Basically,
and
we can prepare and decide, yes. We can't go at the moment because the euro is going down, and we couldn't go in if it was going up. We've got to have a 25-year period of being exactly the same. And then if 5 other conditions are met, including Gordon Brown's dead body being available, then in we go.
What was the other bad news this week for Blair? Did you read
He's
about...
washed up.
Polls, he's gone down in the polls.
He has.
And I don't mean, obviously, the residents of Poland. I mean... And Mo Mowlam is the most popular possible cabinet member, but she's out in the cold for being too popular.
Have you interviewed her?
Mo Mowlam? No, I haven't. No.
Have you interviewed her?
Ish, at New Year's Eve, and she came on from the Dome. And so I think that she'd had a couple of drinks.
Right.
It's hardly cutting-edge stuff, really, is it? We are told to keep it quite shallow.
Right.
And Mo was right up for that, actually.
It is, yes, Peter Mandelson's controversial speech.
I've interviewed Mo Mowlam. Next series of Room 101.
Oh, the next series, so it hasn't been out yet?
Yes, hence the word next.
And was it that interesting, or...?
Yes.
Better. She picked you.
Coming on this show is like joining in with the Odd Couple. It's just grumpy old men arguing amongst themselves.
Oh, do be quiet, Clive. It is Peter Mandelson's controversial speech in Belfast, urging Britain to join the euro. The comments come at a crisis point for the euro. The currency is now worth so little that some EC commissioners are insisting their bribes are paid in dollars. Paul and Liza?
Yes, this is a plane coming into land. This is probably... There was a story, wasn't there, about 2 planes that had a near miss. Oh, there we are, yes. 100 feet, look.
Look at that.
Look at that, yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
There was a trainee in charge of landing the planes together, and he was, I don't know if it was his first day or something, but he was supposed to keep the planes apart, and he just misunderstood that bit, and he was trying to get the 2 dots to go together or something, and somebody leant over and said, no, I don't think so, go up, go up, go up. And it was all right.
Why is this bad timing for the government?
Well, they're about to privatise air traffic control. I'm not sure it's that bad timing. I mean, it does stop people saying, oh, it would never have happened if the government was in charge, because it did. It's probably not a good idea having, say, Group 4 as a guess.
And which country are they modelling this on?
Canada.
Well, no,
Not
interestingly,
Canada.
nowhere. Yes, there's nowhere in the world that has a privatised air traffic control system. And you can see why.
Well, nowhere else has got the House of Lords.
Or Trafalgar Square. Yeah. Or you.
No, good point, Paul.
Thank you, Andrew.
At Heathrow Airport, a BA and British Midland plane came within yards of each other, describing how close the near miss was. One paper compared the distance to a David Beckham free kick, adding it shot up at a fierce angle, missing by 100 feet. Surely a Patrick Vieira penalty, then.
Oh, no.
You've made Clive cry.
And finally, Ian and Clive, your verdict?
Oh, that's Jack Straw and a friend.
Straw made a speech about how prisoners should now do 9 to 5 and not do evenings.
Or weekends if
Or
they could
weekends,
prefer.
because it's terribly expensive.
Yeah.
This is almost liberal, this measure. I mean, Straw's going to get into trouble. This is actually letting people out for various periods of
And
the
who's
day.
it aimed at?
It's aimed at prisoners, Angus.
Right. Yeah. It's actually repeat offenders that it's aimed at, who commit low-level offences.
Low-level offence, people who burgle bungalows, that sort of
That,
person.
yeah.
There are other proposals as well that he's come up with, such as Custody Plus.
Custody Plus, that's...
Yeah.
Sounds like a biscuit.
I think
A biscuit.
yeah.
That sounds like a biscuit, you're right. Is it a biscuit?
It
It's a proposal by Jack Straw.
It's like a custard cream, only it's,
Right.
it's not
more
fattening.
custardy.
Yes, more custard. Custardy plus.
Not quite so much cream.
Do I sense this is another week you haven't been reading the papers?
Absolutely. It's a great burden off my shoulders.
Evidently. And onto ours, by the sounds of it. Yes,
What does
that's
that
right.
mean?
It means the burden passes from yours to his, because he has to fill you in on the story. It's not too difficult.
Wait a minute, I'd just like to point out, sotto voce, Ian did have to ask me who Patrick Vieira was.
Yes, this is Jack Straw's announcement. Under the new initiative, certain offenders would be locked up on Saturdays and Sundays, and Mr Straw pointing out weekend prisons would allow someone to carry on with their occupation during the week. The occupation in most cases being a burglar. Which offending articles mean at the end of this trial it's Ian and Clive who are charging ahead, leading as they do 5-4. And so to the wit-free world of tabloid journalism and the hilariously punny headlines they quite literally throw up, such as Paul and Liza, Danish pasting.
Well, this is probably the football match.
Galatasaray, okay. Rye. And Arsenal, funnily enough.
Yep.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, it is a bit.
Yeah, it is quite funny.
In Copenhagen,
Yep.
Yes.
UEFA Cup final, and Bosch, the whole lot goes off.
There was a cafe that had run out of Custody Plus, and there was a riot. Absolute riot. People got huge Danish pastries, hence the headline, we're hitting each other with all kinds of confectionery. There was an eclair produced at one point.
Oh, no.
Specially sharpened for the occasion.
Who ended up being stabbed.
There was a chap from Edgware got stabbed, an Arsenal fan, but he was just sitting having a drink and a fight started and he was stabbed.
Do you know where he ended up?
He ended up in hospital.
Big white building full of sick people.
No, that's here.
But there was a particular accusation that the Arsenal fans levelled at the Turks.
Well, they were Turkish.
That was one of them, yes. No.
Well, they were going around looking for a fight, and well, obviously Arsenal fans couldn't just let them
Get
leave
away
it
with
at that.
Right.
So they provided one, did they?
Arsenal fans only defended themselves. That's all they did.
Right.
But didn't the Arsenal fans go and smash up a kebab shop in North London last night?
Yes.
There's no proof there was an Arsenal fan who did that. It could have been an enraged person who'd had a bad meal. I mean, nobody knows.
That just happened to be wearing a red and white
You
shirt.
were a lawyer. Did you ever win any cases?
Yes, how many cases do you win in court then? I'll give you my card. If I go back into the law, you just call me in.
Not even we are that desperate.
I've read your paper, you are.
This is the fighting in Copenhagen that preceded the UEFA Cup final. One Arsenal fan who wanted to remain anonymous said, "We were ready and waiting, we kicked the shit out of them." Adding, "I've got to go now, I'm on Have I Got News for You this week." Ian and Clive, your brief revolution reveals Labour new pains.
No, it's New Labour pain.
Sorry,
Yes.
I was,
This week's guest publication is Dyslexia Weekly. Now, what is this here? Is this Cherie Blair having a baby? Is that?
Yeah, I would guess so. Is Labour pains joke?
Yes, she had a sort of twinge this week, and by the time this is broadcast, she's probably had the baby, and it's been elected to Parliament. But
yes, there was another aspect to her week.
she was in court attacking the government.
She was.
Oh, right.
About parental leave?
Yes.
Yes. When can we expect the verdict of this court case?
9 months' time.
It is Cherie Blair's last day in court, just prior to the much-heralded birth of Tony and her baby. Cherie decided to keep going to the very last minute and then stop just before the big moment, which is more than can be said for Tony. In the coming weeks, Tony Blair will have to cope with a new baby as well as running the government, although luckily for him, Cherie's mum, Gail, has volunteered to help out while John Prescott looks after the baby. All of which fecund rubbish means it's Paul and Liza who look seriously up the duff. Behind us they are 7-6. Round 3 is nothing if not topical, which, as it's odd one out, means it's nothing. Paul, your forces of darkness are Robert Mugabe,
Yep.
Richard Branson,
Oh dear.
Marjorie Longdon, and Louis XIV.
Right, Marjorie Longdon. She is a lottery winner. She is the aunt of William Hague.
She is.
So, it's about the lottery. Richard Branson, he's tried to get involved in the lottery. Louis XIV, didn't he invent the lottery? Didn't he sort of wake up one morning and say, the lottery? And everybody said, what are you talking about, Your Majesty? And he said, there's a new word I've invented called the lottery. People buy tickets and there's balls come out and people say, oh, look, I've won. And then they win the lottery. So Robert Mugabe's the odd one out.
Is the wrong answer. How would you tie that in with him being French, for a start?
What do you mean, how would I tie it in with him being French?
Well, inventing the word lottery.
Is that not a French word? If you say it in a sort of French accent? Lottery?
I think he did say, Louis XIV is famous saying, the state lottery, c'est moi.
There are 3 people lying. The rest of us haven't got a clue what you're talking about.
Speak for yourself, Paul.
No.
There seems to be an unpleasant air in the studio today.
I'm sorry about that.
Yes,
Is Marjorie Longdon having a private moment of ecstasy and she's surprised that the cameras are there?
They all organised a lottery except her, who won a lottery.
Yes.
it is equally incorrect.
Yeah.
The answer is that they've all won the lottery, except Richard Branson, who's bidding for it. President Robert Mugabe won the lottery staged by the Zimbabwe Banking Corporation. After the first ticket was drawn, one official stated, "I could hardly believe my eyes," as he quickly stuck it back into the box and thankfully drew out another one which said President Robert Mugabe. Liza, your men of yesteryear are Arthur Scargill, Uri Geller, Michael Winner and Chris Evans.
Uri Geller, famous bender.
He
But I
doesn't
can't
look
see
like
what
it.
it's a ruse that strictly spoons with him. Arthur Scargill.
You have a psychic ability, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Is this
Yeah,
true?
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
Can you bend spoons as well? Is that-
Yes.
Oh,
Can you
haven't
see? You can see colours and auras around people.
I am not wandering into this cul-de-sac, buddy.
How many times have you said that in your life?
Oh, yes.
Can you see a colour around Ian?
Was it brown?
I can match that, look.
Yes.
Peacocks. Was Scargill the only one squeezing the testicles of an invisible monkey?
Oh, hello. Arthur Scargill. He was on the council election. He was up for council election.
He was.
Uri Geller, was he connected with somebody for this? So is this about the vote for London, isn't it? The mayor thing?
Shall I give you a clue? It's about a surprise that none of us here has experienced.
Oh, this must be This Is Your Life, is it? Is it?
Might be.
They've all been on This Is Your Life.
No, they've all turned it down, apart from Uri Geller.
Interestingly not, no.
There was, yeah, he sort of little pause there, wasn't
we're
there? I think they've all
onto
turned it down, apart from Arthur Scargill. or actually, no, it was Michael Winner that turned it down. No, I'm wrong, it was Chris Evans.
Can you imagine Scargills? And here's your old friend, Mrs. Thatcher. Arthur. Oh, we had a laugh in the 80s, didn't we?
Tony Blair can't be here tonight, but he sent this message.
Drop dead.
The answer is actually the opposite. Is that they've all been turned down by This Is Your Life because of a lack of people willing to say anything nice about them.
Oh, no.
With
Except-
except Chris Evans, who caused the producer to resign rather than have him on the show. Which does seem, however, a rather appropriate time, Ian, to ask you to
sorry.
look behind you. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Michael Winner recently talked about a previous partner's revelation in the News of the World. She never said my underpants weren't clean, but the press kept writing that she did. I sue regularly and even had an apology read out on Have I Got News for You, said old Stinky Pants. Michael Winner also admitted, I actually find it slightly funny when a celebrity dies, which I shouldn't. Don't worry, Michael, we'll all piss ourselves when you go. Ian, your political gurus are Michael Portillo, Peter Sissons, John Lennon and Jimmy Tarbuck.
This must be a Liverpool question. I think John Lennon and Peter Sissons were at school together.
With Jimmy Tarbuck, and Clive Anderson was at school with Michael Portillo.
I think that's the connection. They were all at the same school in Liverpool at one stage or another, except Portillo, who wasn't.
Is Peter Sissons the only one who's calling the police because he's been stalked by an identical man? He's standing next to me now. He's standing next to me now. He's got a phone just like me. Peter, it's a mirror. Leave me alone. I know what I'm doing.
We can see a photograph, in fact, of the three of them.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Which is which?
That's not me there.
Peter Sissons on the left, John Lennon in the middle, Jimmy Tarbuck on the right.
Yes.
Haven't you got me and Michael Portillo in swimming costumes to bring up now?
So the rumours are true.
But were you in productions with him? Were you in Macbeth?
He was going to do a film of Macbeth,
Right.
which people kept dropping out of. I eventually got promoted to be King Duncan.
Have you done the Scottish play? You were at RADA, weren't you?
Yes, I was. Yes.
Have you been in Macbeth?
No, I haven't. I've been in As You Like It.
That's the same playwright, isn't it?
It is funny.
Glamorous thou art and Cawdor, and thou shalt be what thou art promised. Yet do I fear thy nature. It is too full of the milk of human kindness to catch the nearest way. Thou wouldst be great, art not without ambition, but without the illness shall attend it. Get it right.
Meanwhile, back at the quiz. On the whole, Peter Sissons has put his Liverpool school days far behind him, although every now and then the 1 o'clock news is delayed as Anna Ford has to straighten out a wedgie. Peter Sissons recently
What does that mean?
No.
What does that mean?
You don't want to know.
Underpants all gathered between the cheeks of your arse.
That's it.
I went to a boys' school.
It's a golf club, isn't it? A wedge.
It's a wedge, I think.
Well, if you get it... oh, no, man.
Peter Sissons recently sparked controversy when he accused TV news programmes of dumbing down, meaning he thought they underestimated the intelligence of their audience. Do you see? And finally in this round, Clive.
Yes?
Her Majesty the Queen, Jimmy Five Bellies, Jonathan Aitken and a cockroach.
Has this got anything to do with prisons at all? Because Jonathan Aitken has been in prison recently, and the cockroaches, there's been a recent report saying that our prisons are infested with cockroaches.
Right.
I'm guessing that possibly Jimmy Five Bellies has spent some time as a guest of Her Majesty,
He has,
and of
yeah.
course Her Majesty is Her Majesty's.
Is she allowed to give herself pleasure?
Well, it's to do with prisons, but there's an additional
barcoding.
element.
They barcoded cockroaches this week, and they're off wandering. They have. I don't know who. They have. And has Mr. Aitken been in some way tagged, as along with Mr. Five Bellies? And the Queen is tagless.
They've tagged cockroaches.
Yes, it's part of a prize-winning thing. If you find them, you put one of those barcode reader things across it, and it'll come up, you know, $1 million or whatever. You're almost right. You're not quite right. The Queen has been bugged.
Has she?
Yes, when she was on tour of Australia this year. So yes, the answer is that they've all been electronically tagged, except for cockroach, which has a barcode. According to the Telegraph last week, the discovery that cockroaches apparently feel pain could change forever the way human beings treat them. Smashing the one that's just walked over your dinner, for example, will be that much more enjoyable. Which repellent behaviour brings us crawling to the end of this round with Paul and Liza on their last legs, trailing as they do 9-8. Our final round is just that, a variety of headlines filched from the dailies, including none, many or fewer from this week's guest publication, the widely acclaimed Rug Hooking. The bold new way to depict the world around us in wool. So, to your marks for what is beaten up by frozen chicken?
Arctic Explorer. It's a grudge. The chicken followed him from Cardiff. And when he was asleep, he's taken them out. I've got you now. Like that.
I can give you a clue. It's a previous guest on this show.
It's
Paul Daniels.
It's Jerry Hayes is the answer.
Oh, yes, I was thinking about him
really?
today.
Why?
Yeah, he's an idiot.
Next, Supergran won't what?
Ballistic.
Won't, not went.
Oh.
won't be exported to Iraq. Oh, I might have misread that. I don't.
No, it's return medals is the answer. This is American athlete Kathy Yeager, who claims her physique has nothing to do with the traces of testosterone found in tests on her, but the result of hard work on her family farm.
She looks like John Pertwee. Why have her legs got separate numbers to her? Oh, they entered on their own. Well, she only just caught up with them. Maybe they lacked her.
Next, what need to be viewed from a distance?
Robin Cook.
Rugs. Planets. Rugs. Vanessa Feltz.
Pictures.
Rugs.
It is a type of rug, certainly.
Yes,
it is
carpet.
from,
Hearth rug.
Hearth rug, yeah.
rug hooking.
Big rugs.
Big rugs is
And
the
then
right
they-
answer. Haven't you? And finally, what no longer compulsory at Oxford?
Being a tosspot. You don't have to be one anymore.
I've seen this. This is either Shakespeare or Anglo-Saxon. So
Inhaling.
it must be Shakespeare if it's all one word.
Is the wrong answer. It's Anglo-Saxon. Yes, to be removed from the English syllabus.
It's quite an old
which
story. They
syllabus?
keep proposing this.
Yeah, I know.
It
I had
goes,
to
it
do
goes
it.
back to Chaucer's day, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
Have they
before.
actually banned it now?
You don't have to do it. It's not a compulsory part of the course.
You have to get a note from
You
Beth.
don't have to be able to recite some switha yelared munuk cum suthan oversea from Sanctus Benedictus Stoa, for example.
Yes, that's all we've time for on Open University. Which undignified scramble means at the end of tonight's bun fight, this week's Michael winners are Ian and Clive with 11, while this week's BAFTA winners are Paul and Lisa with 12. So 6 of the best to our losers, a whole evening with Miss Whiplash to our winners.
Oh, lovely.
But before
she
we...
look like?
She wears a lot of leather. Before we...
She's got a bad neck as well.
yeah.
From the whiplash.
Before we let them slither off into the undergrowth, the poison chalice of our caption competition.
I was Monty's double.
Wolf Betty. Dog's an impressionist. They shouldn't disguise their legs as trees.
And I leave you with news that on tour in the Middle East, the Pope admits his popularity may be on the wane. A commuter receives the news that her local maternity ward has just been closed down. And in South Africa, there's evidence that Robert Mugabe was lying when he said he admired the Queen's new hat. Good night.
Mel and Griff, Rowan and Pamela, not the 9 o'clock news, but next.